Welcome to the October 1st edition of the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series, brought to you by the National Urban League. I'm your host, Kenneth L. Johnson, president of the Harlem, New York-based diversity recruitment firm East Coast Executives. If this is your first time joining us, you picked an excellent time to get with the program. Welcome. Whether it's your first or 21st time, jump in the chat. Tell us what you're looking for out of this session today. The Digital Career Success Series, DCSS, is a professional development series that helps members of our Urban League Young Professional chapters and other diverse job seekers develop new skill sets that will enhance their careers through digital platforms such as webinars, Facebook, and Instagram Live. The goal is to provide an opportunity for professional development right from one's computer. If you want more, visit nuljobsnetwork.com. All right, I'm looking at the energy in the chat. I'm really excited about this. So let's go. Let's just get it started. Today's DCSS, winning negotiations, tactics and techniques for optimal outcomes, features Monique Good and Damali Peterman. All right, with that being said, Monique, I would like you to come on and introduce yourself to the Urban League audience, please.
Hi, Kenneth. My name is Monique. I'm the Chief Human Resources Officer at Cuyahoga County Public Library. I've been in the human resources and leadership role probably over the last about 10 years. And I've developed the passion for helping young professionals to navigate this new career space to them, to share my experiences and to help mentor them and to train them into this new journey in their life.
All right, for people that don't know, Monique, where is Cuyahoga County?
Cleveland.
Cleveland, that is perfect because we were just in Cleveland for the National Urban League Conference. Some of you have probably had the opportunity to see Monique do her thing there, which led to her being here today. So great job, Monique. Thank you for joining us. I really appreciate it.
All right. Thank you for having me back.
Let's bring Damali to the stage. Damali, how are you today?
I'm fantastic, Kenneth. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. You know, we spent some time together several months ago. I think it was February, because it was a Black History Month edition of a conversation that took place. Where were we at? Peloton. And I know that this is your wheelhouse. This is what you talk about and what you do. Please tell our audience a little more about yourself.
Sure. My name is Damali Peterman. I am from Washington, D.C. I'm based in New York. I'm an attorney, a mediator, and also an author. I'll be who you are to get what you want. I am someone who believes that we negotiate every single day. Therefore, we have so many opportunities to improve our negotiation skills. I'm on faculty at Howard University School of Law, my alma mater, where I also teach mediation, which is just facilitated negotiations.
HU. All right, listen, Damali, they tell me that you have a surprise for us, that we're going to raffle off a book. What book would that be?
That's right. So this is, let's see if you can see it here. I think I have to turn off there we go. It's hard to see it here, but it's Be Who You Are to Get What You Want. Just a couple of weeks ago, Forbes ranked it as number 5 top of best negotiation books, which is great because it was released about a year and a half ago. And I also have a National Urban League connection. I was one of the keynote speakers at the Whitney M. Young conference on October 15th last year.
I can't believe I missed that, but I'm so glad that you're part of the Urban League family. Wanda Jackson always says, once an Urban Leaguer, always an Urban Leaguer. So thank you for joining us today. You mentioned number 5. We know that your book is really number 1, but you mentioned 5. So I want to kick this conversation off with the foundational 5.
Yeah. And so the foundational 5, if any of you in the chat and just put in here what you know about building a house, you have to have the foundation first. The foundation is so important. And upon that foundation, you can really take your skills into any situation, any negotiation. So what's key for me is something that I call the foundational 5. And these are 5 elements that are in every negotiation. And really, it's 5 things you have to know. You have to know what you want, know what you need, know how to actively listen, know how to communicate, and know when to close. How many times have you been in a situation where you got everything you wanted, needed, you had the nice communication back and forth, but you didn't know when to walk away? Or maybe you had some doubt, or that phrase, buyer's remorse, right? And so what I want to do is just break down a little bit what the foundational 5 means to me. And of course, feel free to put your thoughts in the chat. Of course, I invite Monique to jump in at any time. But I think it's important to just think about these elements being the tools that you need to negotiate like a pro. And so in knowing what you want, that number one, every day we make statements about what we want, right? I want a raise, I want a new car, I want you to do your homework, whatever the case may be. And so what's key is in order to get what you want, you have to know what you want. So clarity about that is important. And negotiations, we call this a position, like what you want. Now, I want to jump to number two, know what you need, because what you want and what you need may not always be the same, right? And so maybe you want a new car, but what you need is a reliable way to get to work. Maybe you want a raise. What you need is a way to pay for continuing education. Maybe you want your kid to do your homework, but what you need is for them to get good grades and get a scholarship, right? And so it's really important to know the difference between what you want, that position, and then why you want it, why you need it, right? That's sort of the interest, the why. And so for anyone who's thinking about negotiating, even if it's with a friend or a family member or at work with a colleague, even if it's for something as simple as having a conversation with a person where they have something that you need to obtain or acquire for whatever reason, separating your wants from needs is your first step.
I love it. I love it. Separating your wants from needs. I think that's the plan with negotiating, right? Like you can't come in not knowing what you want, you have to know what you want to even start that process. Monique, talk to us about wants and needs in the negotiation process.
I agree with Damali. She did a great explanation. I mean, because a lot of times people go into negotiations not really knowing what their bottom line is, what it is that they're looking for, what they actually need to feel like they've got to win. Because as we all know, negotiations are win-win. So know what you're going to feel like. What's it going to feel like when you feel like you've walked away or you've been successful in your negotiations?
What it feels like. And sometimes people can misconstrue what that actually is, right? Because you're not listening. Damali, I know one of your bullets is about active listening. Can you define active listening and then go into kind of what you mean about that statement?
Certainly. So, what I love about active listening is everyone always says, oh, I'm listening. I heard you. I can repeat back what you said. But it's so much more than that. Communication is input and output, right? And so oftentimes when we're preparing to have a conversation or to negotiate with someone, we're preparing what we're going to say, what we're going to do, but we're not preparing how we're going to listen, right? Sometimes we think, there's only one way to answer our questions, but that's not the case. And so active listening, it's to me, one of the greatest strengths that you can have as a negotiator is knowing how to listen. And before I tell you how to do it, what I will say is that there are many reasons that we don't listen, right? So we don't listen because we are thinking about what we want to say next. We don't listen because we don't like what we're hearing. We don't listen, if we're being honest, because perhaps we don't like the person who's talking, right? And so we don't want to hear what they have to say. And so there are all these reasons why we may be listening through filters. So what can you do to actively listen, to actually hear and receive what a person is saying and wait for it, what they're not saying? Sometimes you have to listen to the space between the words. I think there's a quote from Miles Davis where he's talking about, that when making music and making jazz, it's not just the melody and the notes, but it's that space between the words. So this is how you can actively listen. And by the way, I talk about this, I teach this globally, but I don't put this in my book. So for those of you who are here listening right now, you're going to get the framework from me live. So essentially, to me, there's 6 ways you can actively listen. I like to think of listening being like a reflection. So think of a mirror and you're reflecting back what you've heard to the other person. So if you're reflecting back, if you use that as the R word, one way for you to remember how to do this is 6 R words, right? So I like alliteration. I was an English major at Spelman, so I love alliteration. So how do you reflect back? How do you actively listen? Number 1, you want to repeat back what you hear. We all know how to do that, right? Someone says something, you repeat back using more of their words. I'm not saying it has to be an exact replica of what they're saying, but you want to use more of their words than your words. The second R word is to rephrase. Now, for my other English majors out there, it's more like paraphrasing, but we're working with alliteration here, okay? So we're going to go with an R and say rephrase. When you're rephrasing, you're using more of your words than the other person's words, right? That's what you're doing. So you're showing them that you're listening to them by giving them that sort of reflection back. The third R word is to reframe. Now, reframing is really important because it's basically when you can identify what the bottom line is for the other person. I'll give you an example. You want your kid to clean their room. They're telling you all the reasons they can't clean their room, and you're trying to figure out how to reframe it so that you can identify it. And it's not because you just are picky. It's not because you pay the bills. It's because it's unsafe to have toys all over the place. Yesterday you stepped on a Lego and almost broke your foot. So you want to talk about the bottom line. The reframe is it's an unsafe condition, or it's unsightly, or whatever it is. Sort of just putting your finger on whatever that moment is, or the issue that you think you're hearing from the person as they're talking to you. The fourth R word is to reflect emotions, right? R word, another word. People think that I found in my career that people often think that emotions are tough and difficult, and they are. But sometimes if you don't reflect someone's emotions back to them, they don't feel as though you heard them or you're listening to them. And so I'm not saying meet them where they are. If they're at a 10, I don't want you to be at a 10. I want you to bring it down a little bit, but I want you to lean into the emotions that they're showing you. If they are showing you frustration or saying that they're frustrated, then say, I can hear that you're frustrated, or you seem to be frustrated. Tell me more about that. And then they'll tell you more about that. The last R word, or I guess the fifth R word, is to resist. Now, what do I mean by resist? With the word resist, what I'm thinking about with active listening is resist making it about you, right? How many times have we been in a conversation with someone, or we're telling someone about a situation that had occurred, and we're saying, if it were me, I would have done X. Well, the other person isn't you. And what we learned from conflict communication styles from Thomas and Kilman is that there are 5 primary communication styles when a person is in conflict. And if you want to know what they are,
Yes.
there's so many 5s, right? Kind of so many 5s, 5 books, 5 foundational 5 conflict styles. 5 is a good number. So competitive, collaborative, avoiding, accommodating, and compromising. So essentially, when you're in conflict with someone, these are the 5 ways that people respond. And so when I'm saying resist making it about you, because you aren't the other person and you don't know which conflict communication style that they're going to have in that moment. And depending on the situation, you might have a different way to react. And so resist making it about you. And number 6, the last one, is redo. Do it over and over again. Practice these 6 reflection styles. Practice active listening. You can do this homework today. Yes, I'm giving you homework just a few minutes into this session. You can do this today. You can listen to someone for a few minutes, and just instead of doing what you would normally do, try to use one of the 6 active listening styles that I just talked about.
I love it. I love it all. Ladies and gentlemen, that is our DCSS on winning negotiations. That's it right there. That's everything we needed. Listen, okay, so what I heard in that was a lot of emotional intelligence, right? Kind of understanding the room. And the key to effective emotional intelligence is kind of empathy and understanding and communicating that back, right? Monique, as we talk about these 5 foundational elements, let's talk a little bit about how.
Well, can I respond to something that she said with regards to listening and active listening? If people, because a lot of times it's very emotional. Negotiations is very, very emotional, and there's a lot of times people are afraid to go into the conversation or afraid to ask. And they're getting very emotional, hyped up. Oh my gosh, I can't wait to do this, or I just want to get it over with. And they're not listening. But a lot of times, or sometimes, you can find yourself in negotiations, and when you actually listen to what the person is saying, they're letting you know what they need also. And, there may be times where you have an aha moment where we want the same thing. I'm just asking for it differently, and we can come to this conclusion together, or it can be a true win-win if I just take the time to listen to what the other person's saying. So I think that the active listening is just so very, very important.
Yeah, I think you explained that next bullet well, right? In the active listening component, it's all about the communications cycle, right? you know, like if it's a 360, you're listening and you're providing feedback and you're circling back, right? And you're getting to a place where you can close, right? So Monique, I know in your role as a leader in human resources, you're in constant negotiation, and it could be both sides of that, right? It could be, there's two different end users in that dialogue, right? Because you're talking about employees, you're talking about vendors, you're talking about a lot of people.
Absolutely.
How do you position yourself well for an effective close where it is a win-win?
I mean, one of the things that I do is I definitely listen. I want to listen because I'm always trying to listen for some way I can make it a win-win. I can't give you this, however, this is what I can give you. Or I'm hearing this is what you need from me, but this is what I'm going to need from you in order for us to make this work. It's constant give and take. It's constant win-win. And I don't like to feel like that there's ever a loser in the situation. I always want to feel like someone is always winning, or I want someone, if someone's going to be the loser, I want it to be me. I want staff, or I want employees, I want people to walk away feeling like they have a true win.
Okay. And I think that's authentically you. Let's talk about, you know, how we show people who we are in this conversation, right? When we're talking about negotiation and you're showing them who you are. And the first bullet here is, you know, be your authentic self. Damali, please talk to us a little bit about how that positions in this conversation.
Certainly. So I feel like the old negotiation model always wanted people to sort of imitate successful, fill in the blank men, whomever, who've negotiated all these types of like high stakes business deals, among others. And the issue with that is that if you're trying to imitate someone else, then you're not being you, right? Because by default, you're not. And so for me, I wanted to make sure that I give people sort of this the license, if you will, to recognize that they can be themselves and still be successful in negotiation. And that is the approach, because the only constant in every negotiation that you, listener, are in is you. And so just forget about what you've heard about trying to be like this person, that person, and be your authentic self. Now, I want to say that being authentic doesn't give you a license to be thoughtless. I say that because how many times have you talked to someone and they've said something and you're like, wait, that didn't come across the right way. And they're like, oh, I'm just being authentic. No. You can't just say what you want to say. You can't just say and hide under the guise of being authentic. You have to be thoughtful in your communications. You have to be thoughtful in your negotiations, and you have to think about all the things that you want to accomplish. And I like what Monique said, try to aim for a win-win. That's great if that can happen. And also think about, what you bring to the table, so that you're thinking about how what your authenticity looks like to you. That's what I mean. Like, define it for yourself, because when you're authentically you and you're true to yourself, you act with integrity and you're building equity in yourself.
Love it. Let's bring this. I know a lot of people tuned in when they saw this. When people think negotiation on this platform, I believe they think about salary negotiation, or at least a negotiation that's very much aligned with workplace conversation, right? So Monique, we were talking about in the bullets, like someone's UVP, like what's your unique value proposition? As you sit on the other side, how important is it for people to understand that is the separating piece, possibly between winning, and I don't want to say losing, but at least getting what it is that you want?
Let me share something I just want to share something that I'm constantly saying, because the people that come into my office usually are the people that are trying to negotiate a higher salary. A lot of times they're already in the organization. So they're not new to the organization. They know me, I know them. I know their work ethic. I know what they come with. One thing that I always say is when you start in an organization, you're actually interviewing for your next position in that organization. So everything you've done up to that point, that's you. That's who you are. That's what you're going to be. That's what's going to go into what's going to go into either you winning or losing, or you getting exactly what you want out of this negotiation. So I want people to remember that when they're going into a negotiation. You want to remember who you've been up to this point. So when you're being your unique self and you're bringing your value to the table, I want you to know I want you to be proud of what you bring to the table. So think about that as you go through your workday, as you go through your work career in your organization. Bring your unique self. Bring what you bring, your experiences, and be happy. Be proud to show it off when you go into your negotiations.
So let's talk about that a little, about showing that off, right? So are you seeing people come in with a basic brag book of their accomplishments or things they've achieved organizationally and using that to position themselves for a raise or a promotion?
I do see that. I have seen that, and I've actually seen that. I think that was something of the past, but I'm seeing it a lot more lately. It's coming back around more lately, which can be beneficial. But it depends on, a lot of times it depends on, okay, who are you getting these accolades from? If you're getting them from your coworker, that's one thing. But if you're getting them from outside vendors, if you're getting them from people higher up in the organization, that means, to me, that brings a lot more weight.
Love it.
And it's definitely, it lets me know that you take pride in your work.
I can appreciate that. It's the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. We are here with Monique D. Good, Damali Peterman. We're talking about winning negotiations. Listen, I know you're asking, I haven't even looked in the chat, but we will have a Q&A segment probably in about 20 minutes where you can field your questions to Damali and Monique around the topic of negotiations. If you are watching this live, we appreciate you. But if you're not and you want to share this will be available on the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series YouTube channel, probably by the end of the week. So don't fret. Please stay on, though, because we will have a raffle where 5 of you will get the opportunity to have Damali's book. And I don't know. I'm hearing that might be signed. I don't know. We'll figure that out. All right, look, I want to continue this conversation. Let's talk about superpowers, right? How you harness your superpowers to be effective in this conversation, right? So with that being said, you should know your strengths, right? Damali, people are coming to negotiation and they're kind of doing this on the fly. I probably don't recommend that, but you're the expert, you're the thought leader in this space. Talk to us about how people need to know their strengths.
I think it's so important because yes, you shouldn't do it on the fly, but the hope is that if you exercise the muscle enough, then you should be able to do it on the fly, right? So that's kind of the plan, especially if you're being yourself. You're not trying to be like someone else. You're being the best you could be in the negotiation. So I think what's really important about knowing your strengths, and I'll combine that with not being afraid to reframe, is that say you are, and I usually ask people, and you can put it in the chat for those of you who are tuning in live, what is something that you know you do well, and what is something that someone told you do well, right? So when I say this all over the country, people say, oh, I'm really good at listening. I'm being patient. I'm good at seeing like the key factors or, the high level issues. I'm good at interacting with people. Everyone kind of can think of something, at least one thing that they know they're good at or that someone told them they're good at. So then the question is, how do you parlay that into other aspects of a negotiation, right? So how can you be the person to show up more consistently utilizing what you do best, right? Like if you're a chef, you're going to be, if you have the ability to cook all the time, you're going to try to highlight what you can do. If you're not a person who is a downhill skier, you probably wouldn't do that, right? You'd kind of lean towards what you do. So how that works with reframing is I want you, those of you listening, to do this, to think about something that you don't think you do well or that someone told you didn't do well. And how can you reframe that to be a superpower? Because people say, oh, I'm really good at this. I've been doing it for 10, 15, 20 years. And sometimes people say, oh, I can't learn something new, or you can't teach an old dog new tricks, or all these types of things. So how can you reframe what you think you don't do well, or something that someone told you don't do well, to see that as another superpower? So you're expanding the tools that you have at your disposal in a negotiation.
I love that, because I speak to people about that in interview settings, reframing what they may believe is a weakness into a strength, or at least providing a platform for continuous learning towards how they're getting better in that. Monique, would you like to touch on that?
Absolutely. I think a lot of times in interviews, people ask, what is a weakness or what is your weakness? And I think reframing it and sort of turning it into not necessarily a positive, but turning it into something that you're working on, something that I acknowledge, but I'm actively working on it or I'm actively addressing it. I think that shows a lot about the person.
You know what? Let's stay here for a second, but in a sense, moving to the next slide, because that's about doing your research. And a lot of times in negotiations, it's the information that you know, not only about the opportunity moving forward, but about yourself, right? And how you can share and communicate that information. I'm seeing an underlying theme of communication in this conversation. Damali, we're talking about knowing what matters most. How do people, especially, let's just say it's outside, say you're coming from outside of the organization and you're looking at an opportunity. So I'm speaking about job and career search right now. How do you know what matters most? How do you gather that information?
So I love this question, Kenneth. I think you have to, one, see what you can find in terms of research about the company. What are they saying? Where are they showing up? Sort of, you can, and not just what it says on the website about their mission, vision, like those statements, but how are they showing up in spaces and places? You can look at social media. Sometimes they may have an active social media account. You can probably see, depending on if it's a public company, where they're donating, things of that nature. And so when we're talking about jobs and salaries, what I think is important, especially when I'm interviewing people to work for my company, is just hearing that they understand what my company stands for, what we're doing, and how they can help or enhance what we're doing. It's not just about dollars and cents, right? And when you said salary negotiation, what I wanted to add to that, since we're talking about jobs and job searches and salaries, is the following. Sometimes you have to be creative about salary, right? It's not just a want, I want a certain amount of money, but what do you need? Because when I push people to switch from what they want and how they're not going to do something because they're not getting what they want, when I push them to think about why they need what they want, then you start to hear things like, I want to go back to school, or I want, X. And the company may have a tuition reimbursement program, but if you're so focused on dollars and cents, you may not even get to the conversation where you can explore how you can have your needs met. And research will tell you that. Research will tell you if they have a tuition reimbursement program. You can ask people questions who work there, who used to work there. There's a lot you can do to research. But this day and age, there's no excuse to not know things about the companies that you are either trying to work for or that you're internally working for and trying to advance or move around the company. There's no excuse. You have so much information available to you. There's no excuse.
Hey, Monique, is that conversation always one-sided? You're coming in as a CHRO, right? Or Chief Human Resource Officer, right? Yeah.
Yes.
So you're coming in from that lens. What's the research part on your end of the conversation?
Well, the research part, and I liked what Damali said about, do your research and not just on the website, but look at the website. On the website, do you see people that look like you? Do you see people that are, that you would feel comfortable? Because there's a lot of them that are using models or using stock photos, but there's a lot of organizations that are using videos. Like, what is the day in the life of somebody, that works here? They're using videos from their organization, things that they're proud of, things that they volunteer with, things that they do in the community. Those are things that you should be looking at. Are they supporting organizations, or are they supporting causes that are important to you? They have a lot of organizations have badges now that organizations can put on their website. Some of those badges are great workplace, LGBTQ friendly, military friendly. If those are causes that are important to you, then that might be an organization you want to look into. Other researches you can do is, of course, everyone knows you can do the salary, do the Glassdoor research. People are very honest, particularly scorned employees are very happy to go on and talk about their experiences at organizations. This is from experience, I know. But you want to hear the good, the bad, and the ugly before you make a choice about where you want to spend, hopefully, a lot of time.
Yeah.
So yes, your research is very, very important, because once you get there, it's just so disheartening to get somewhere where you feel like you don't belong.
It's about information, right? And we speak about this often. Just a tool like LinkedIn, right? And kind of honing in on people that are working for an organization, because people share a lot of their experiences, even even if it's under the cover of something else, they're still sharing about their experiences in that particular organization. And if you can kind of read through that, I know Damali spoke earlier about kind of listening to what's not being said as well, and kind of reading between the silence and the lines and things of that nature. I think you can find a ton of information through that as well. All right, so we're at a point now where I'd love for you guys to give some thought to this conversation, right? Practicing your ask. It's the Urban League Jobs Network Digital Career Success Series. We're here with Damali Peterman, Monique D. Good. We're talking winning negotiations, and we're at the point of the conversation where we want to share with you tips and techniques on how you can practice your ask. You know, you have to be clear, confident, and concise, but Damali, talk to us a little more about what that all means and how someone can kind of master that art.
Certainly. So I'm going to give you something that you can use at any stage of a negotiation, and it doesn't matter what you're asking for. Before, during, and after the negotiation, you can ask yourself 2 questions. How do I want to be perceived? That's number 1. How do I want to be perceived? And number 2 is, how am I being perceived? And so there's a great book that I like on conflict coaching by Brinker and Ross. And what they talk about are 6 categories that our identities can be described as. So personal, professional, situational, relationship, organizational, and cultural. And so, and that sounds like a lot of words, but this is what it comes down to. If you're in a situation, you're going to practice your ask. How do you want to be perceived, and how are you being perceived? So 1, if I'm trying to apply for a job as an attorney, and I'm an attorney, and I have a practice area that I care about, I want to be perceived as an expert in that practice area. Then later on, I might go to school, pick up my kids. I don't want to be perceived as being a great mom in that moment, like the fun, cool, young, hip mom, right? And so the point there is that, you know, I want us to get away from some of the things like code switching, because that makes you feel like you have to always be the same in every situation. And when you're practicing your ask for one thing, you have to show up the same person, because maybe you're not being authentic if you do it this way and that way. No, we have different identities. And when you practice your ask, think about how you want to be perceived by the other person. And then also think in the moment, evaluate, how am I being perceived? Am I being perceived the way that I want to be perceived in that moment? And then pivot, fix it. If you're noticing that that's what you're trying to have come across, not coming across, then do some real-time adjustment so that you can really maximize your ask.
You know, I can appreciate that. And I also appreciate if you repeat the name of that book again. I'm seeing people in the chat asking for that information.
Sure. It's a book. It's called Conflict Coaching. I actually took the course, and it's the authors are Ross and Brinkert. Sorry. Trisha Jones and Ross Brinkert. So if you look up Jones and Brinkert, you'll find the book, and the book is on conflict coaching. And I took the course. Dr. Jones, Trish, we call her. She was at Temple. I don't know where she is now, but an excellent educator.
I love it. Thank you so very much for sharing that. Our audience loves resources. So, and listen, they're going to have the opportunity to get an amazing resource as we raffle off 5 of Damali's books at the close to the end of the show. We want you guys to stick around, but that's definitely a good reason to stick around. Not to mention this information you're going to get from Monique Good. Monique, we're talking about practicing the ask. What do you have to add on that conversation?
Absolutely. So after you do your research and you know what to ask for, you know what you're going to ask for, be it additional days off, maybe a different schedule, maybe additional benefits, more tuition reimbursement, whatever it is, additional money, additional salary, whatever it is, you want to be able to practice it so that it comes across naturally for you. You don't want to be too energetic, or you don't want to be too emotional when you ask for it. As Damali said before, you want to sort of reflect the other person's energy when you're having the conversation. But you definitely want to practice and make sure what you're saying comes across the way you want to come across. You definitely want to come across the way you want to come across. And I know that sounds confusing, but you want to make sure that you're asking the way that you want to ask, and it comes across the way that you mean for it to.
Listen, we love that. You have to be clear and concise, right? That's what that bullet's all about. So we can appreciate that. Look, I'm going to encourage our audience. Please drop your questions in the Q&A. I think I see about 2. We're going to get to as many as we can I have some. If you guys don't want it, I'll take it. I have both of these subject matter experts on the line. I will take full advantage of asking them questions if you choose not to. But I'd like to get your stuff answered first. So with that being said, we're going to go to our final slide before we jump into the Q&A. Know your bottom line. In any negotiation, I think that's really important. Monique, you were just speaking about some of this. Talk to us about knowing your bottom line.
Absolutely. Know your bottom line. As Damali said before, know what you want, but actually know why you want it. Determine what's the lowest you're going to go. What do I need to feel valued, or what do I need compared to what other people in this space are making when it comes to salaries? Know what you're going to accept and what you're not going to accept. I think it's very important to go in there with that, because a lot of times negotiations can be heated or negotiations can get emotional, and you sort of lose sight of that. Keep that in your mind of what your bottom line is before you go in, and stick to it. Remain true, remain honest to that, stick to it. Now, let me just tell you, once you go in there and you know your bottom line may be a certain number, but when you get in there and you start talking and you start actually doing the negotiations, the person you're negotiating with may offer you something that's not in your salary. It may be additional benefits. It may be additional time off, it may be to pay for a degree, to pay for additional training. And those are some things you want to consider also.
Yeah, I think all of that extremely important. Damali, you want to add anything there?
Yeah, let me give you some questions that you can ask yourself if you're trying to figure out, and this goes to the number 5 in the foundational 5, know when to close, right? So let me give you some questions you can ask yourself. Monique already perfectly hit on one. Did I get what I wanted or needed, right? Ask yourself that. Did I get what I wanted or needed? Did I get more than what I bargained for? That's great. Maybe you went in there looking for, A and you got B. That's fantastic. Ask yourself, have I conceded more than I had planned to? Did you give away more than you planned to? You need to shut that negotiation down. So have I conceded more than I planned to? Another question is a better alternative available to me? In negotiations, this is what Uri and Fisher call a BATNA. A best alternative to a negotiated agreement. All that means is if you don't come to an agreement in the negotiation, what are you going to do? That's your best option. An alternative to that is also your WATNA, your worst alternative to a negotiated agreement. So, what's the worst alternative? So if you went in there to negotiate for a new car, you walked out the dealership without a car, your best alternative may be to keep driving the car that you have. Maybe nothing was wrong with it, but you just wanted the new. Or the worst alternative is maybe you have to, walk 10, miles or 10, whatever, for 2 hours to get to where you have to go. A few more questions could be, is there anyone else that I might bring the matter to? Sometimes you may not be negotiating with the right person. Maybe that person doesn't have the authority to do what you need them to do. So ask yourself, is that the person? Is that the decision maker? Or should I be talking to someone else who could either help me by being an ally, or can support me or speak my name when I'm in rooms where I'm not present? And the last 2 questions I would say is, what do I gain or lose by spending more time on this? Do not negotiate for 10 more days to get just $50 more, right? Like, that's just too much time. So thinking about how much energy you want to spend in the negotiation. And then the last question is, what do I risk if I continue to negotiate? Some of you know people, nobody here, but some of you know people who keep trying to negotiate and trying to change the culture of a place that's not changing, or trying to negotiate with the person to get that person to change, and they're not going to change. And so what are you giving of yourself? What are you risking by continuing to go down this path? Are there any reputational risks? Are there any other types of risks that you're worried about? So just think about the risk of continuing to push for something where that may not just be the place or space for you.
I'd like to piggyback on that, Damali. I want to share my personal experience where I knew I was doing above and beyond. I had, in my previous organization, or at a previous organization, I had gone above and beyond. I had gotten a degree. And just because you get a degree, it does not necessarily mean that you're going to get a promotion. But I had grown the position that I was in to be something a lot larger than the organization ever thought that it would be. And I knew that. I had been told that, I had been expressed that, and I knew that, and I was doing an excellent job. And I just kept going back for, can I do this? Can I do this? And it wasn't money. It was a title change. It was more responsibility, more this. And of course it was also, can I get more money? And I knew that was not in the works at that time. And I was married to that organization. I felt that I was married to the organization. And then I was told no so many times. And I just had to accept the fact that maybe this isn't the place for me. Maybe this is not the place for me. And I had been on LinkedIn and seen a position open, a position for weeks and weeks. And I kept saying, nobody's going to give me that job. Nobody's going to give me that job. I applied for that job. There were over 100 applicants for the position, and I got it. So, the negotiations may not go well for you for whatever reason, but that may be your opportunity or your sign to maybe look somewhere else.
You know what? You took me to a place that I probably forgot about here in this conversation. For all the entrepreneurs out there, because we do have a few of them that tune in weekly for this show and to get information. What I heard Monique saying is don't negotiate against yourself, right? You don't want to do that. So I thank you for bringing that up. I really appreciate it. And kudos and congratulations for you still believing in yourself and applying for the job anyway, because success does happen. Especially all you need is an opportunity to get in front of the right people. Hiring manager, hiring influencer, decision makers. They are the people that ultimately need to see what you're bringing to the table. All right, with that being said, I think it is a great time to go into Q&A. Hey, Christopher, please expand on your question here. I want to get it answered, but I don't have enough context there. So if you jump back in and leave another question, that'll be amazing. All right, look, this is the Q&A segment. I told you it was coming. We are moments away from raffling off these books as well. So thank you for staying with us. I want to get this question from Matthew here. Should we fight our emotional side of negotiations, or just accept it as a matter of the deliberation? All right, talk to me. Whoever wants to take this, Damali, you want to jump in?
Yeah. No, you should get information from your emotional side. You shouldn't fight it. The emotion is telling you something. It's telling you maybe why you care, why you don't care. So to me, it's just another way to get some information. It's telling you if you're passionate about it. And then the next step could be then evaluating what to do with that information. So definitely don't fight it.
All right, don't fight it. I like that answer. Monique, anything you want to add to that?
Absolutely. If it's something that's causing angst in you, you really need to look into it. Like Damali said, why is this causing me so much angst? Why is this causing me bringing this type of emotion for me? I think negotiations is exciting. It's exciting for what's to come. What's the possibility? But if it's causing you angst or negative emotions, please look into that. But use it. Use that energy towards getting you what you want.
Well, I think that leads us that leads us directly to what Deja was speaking about, right? What are some of the biggest mistakes that people can make? And I'm just going to add in negotiations on the back of that. Damali?
I'll say not preparing by just thinking about the foundational 5, right? We prepare in different ways. So I would prepare those things. You need one big mistake, not knowing the difference between what you want and what you need. Because you may not, what's the song? You may not always get what you want, but if you try sometimes, you get what you need. They may be actually meeting your needs, but you're so stuck on a position that you're not hearing that they're giving you other things that'll help you accomplish what you want to accomplish. So separating your wants from your needs is important. Preparing to listen, I think, is very important, to actively listen. I think it's also important to communicate, to be concise. I saw it pop up on the screen, but to be concise, to be personable, to be you, and then to know when to close. I think the biggest mistakes is being in a negotiation and not knowing when to stop, right? Not knowing when to wrap things up is really important, because you could be conceding more than you wanted to concede and giving away too much. Or maybe you've gotten so much and maybe you're like, oh, maybe I can get 5 more things. I mean, you just got to fill it out. There's no one size fits all strategy. And you sort of have to think about and use your judgment. But those are some of the common things that I see where people make mistakes.
Now, while I have you here, let's just do it. One of the questions is the 6 R's, right? Do they need to happen in a certain order to be effective?
What was the question?
The 6 R's that you mentioned.
Oh, no. A great question. No, you can use them however you see fit. What I have found, however, that in the beginning of a conversation, it's helpful to repeat more what the person is saying. It also depends on, because people who you talk to regularly, they know your communication style, right? So, for example, if you go home today and you listen to your wife for the first time, she's gonna be like, "Whoa, why are you listening to me? You never listen to me. You always cut me off, interrupt me. You're gonna learn something about how you listen from the other person." But I think repeating is always helpful in the beginning, because it may be they're telling you something new, and you want to make sure that you're listening, and you want to stop yourself from jumping into any bias that you might have, right? So, say someone that you don't like or don't trust is talking to you, and you're already thinking when they open their mouth, what's this joker about to say, right? And so if you think about having to repeat back what they have to say, that might pause, you from thinking about any bias, any explicit or subconscious bias that you might have, or unconscious bias that you may have. So I would say you don't have to do it in any order. Use your judgment, but consider repeating first, at least at the beginning.
I got you. Thank you so very much. Monique, I think this is in your wheelhouse. How do you approach an employer who is deliberately trying to gut the CBA without allowing things to go off the rails?
They're deliberately trying to gut the CBA?
That's what it sounds like here. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, you actually use your union to your benefit at that time. I would go to my union president, my union representative, to help me with that, depending on what it is.
Speaking of union representatives, we got Craig on here. Is one of the best practices while sharing your proposal, you must be very descriptive and paint the picture why your proposal is so important to you. Do you believe that's an effective technique?
Oh, I absolutely do. You definitely want to be descriptive about why it's important to you, but also why it's important to the organization or to who you're negotiating with. So you definitely want to see both sides of it.
Gotcha.
You want to respect the other person's needs and wants also, while expressing yours.
So we're going to get 2 of these questions answered here, Damali. One of them is, can you explain imposter syndrome? But the other is, how do you deal with imposter syndrome while considering negotiations? So I think you might be able to blend the 2 there.
Yeah, this comes up a lot where people are thinking about imposter syndrome, and I think it's something that people often feel, right? So they may not feel that they're good enough, or that they can meet the expectation that either they have for themselves or whatever environment that they're in has for them. And so imposter syndrome, if I had to explain it without using a dictionary, I would say it's basically like feeling like you don't belong in the space that you're occupying at that moment for whatever reason, whether that's from an internal reason or external. How do you combat it? I think you have to understand why you're feeling it in that moment. And so, for example, if it's because you don't feel like say you just got promoted and you just started the job, and maybe you don't feel like you know everything you need to know, well, pause. Why do you feel that way? They promoted you. That means that they believe you can do it, right? And you must have thought you could do it too, because maybe you accepted the promotion. And so sometimes I feel like our brains can run so quickly, and then it takes a moment to sometimes catch up to them. But ask yourself why you feel that way. I often feel sometimes that you just have to share more and say more. I think sometimes it's like the question is, does it feel like, bragging? Does it feel like I'm like being like self-aggrandizing? Like, how does it feel? And maybe just sharing a little bit more might help you not feel like you have imposter syndrome. And also just taking a look back. Look at all you've accomplished. Look at what you've done. You are where you are for a reason, and you deserve to be where you are, and you belong there. So sometimes some affirmations is having some daily affirmations or affirmations in general might help you to combat imposter syndrome.
Excellent. I'm going to put the 2 of you on the spot. We're going to try to get these last 3 questions answered. So like 10-second answers if possible, give or take. Monique, how do you deal with okay, we just did the imposter syndrome question. So now you got about 15 seconds for these next ones, right? What should your response be, if any? What should your response, if any, be when you don't hear back on your counter offer to a negotiation? Monique, please.
I would follow up, but the silence should be telling you something. silence is speaking louder at this time, but I would follow up. It would be worth it as a follow up, because there are sometimes 1 out of 10 times where someone, it just fell off their radar. They had other things that prioritize. But your silence should be telling you something, that you're not a priority, or that this probably isn't going to happen for you, to be completely honest.
Appreciate you. All right.
Can I say something about that?
Please.
Yes.
So I talk about this in my book, actually. So the question is, what should you do? I'll tell you what you shouldn't do. You shouldn't negotiate against yourself. You shouldn't be like, oh, I didn't hear anything for a week, and I said I wanted $150,000. I'm going to go back and say, just kidding. I do want this job. I'll take 125. What you shouldn't do is negotiate against yourself. What you shouldn't do is assume it's about you. I've been in situations where I'm a mediator, so I'm always in the middle of negotiations. I just settled yesterday an agreement deal. And what I'll tell you, sometimes it's not about you at all. Sometimes people are out for religious reasons. Sometimes they're out of the office on vacation. Sometimes people get sick. People are still getting COVID. People get sick. And so I agree with Monique, follow up, but also don't assume it's about you, the reason that they didn't get back to you. Companies could be going through a restructuring. Check the news. I had someone ask me about a job, and they said, oh, I haven't heard anything. Can you call your contact? And before I called my contact, I just did a Google search and saw that they just announced layoffs, that they were restructuring. And so I wrote my friend back and copied her at the center of the message and said, this is probably why you haven't heard back from them, because there are things going on that have nothing to do with you.
All right. Well, listen. No. We gotta go. We're raffling off some books here. Let's go to the next slide, please. We gotta go. All right, closing remarks. Monique, that is the time. If you want to include it there, that's great. Please, real quick, closing remark, 20 seconds.
Closing remarks. Know your bottom line, but also know that I'm going to go back to Damali's experience or response to, if you don't hear from the company, if you don't hear from them, please follow up. And the reason being is, I had a young lady. She asked me, she sent me a voicemail, and she said, hey, I'd like to, can you please offer me this? And she had a very compelling reason. I mean, it was on a voicemail. It was a very compelling reason. I went back and looked at it. I was like, oh yeah, absolutely, I could do that for her. It wasn't a problem. And then by the time I couldn't even respond to her, and she emailed me and says, oh, it's okay, I'll take the first offer. And I had to call her and say, absolutely not. You're going to take the second offer. However, next time, just be a little more patient. Sometimes it just takes a little patience.
Gotcha.
Is my time up, Kenneth?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes. Sorry.
Damali, closing remarks, please.
Foundational 5, know what you want, know what you need, know how to actively listen, know how to communicate, know when to close. You can use these in every situation. It doesn't have to be, every negotiation doesn't have to be long and drawn out. If you get stuck, just reevaluate. Am I getting what I want or what I need? What do I need? So if you do that, you'll find that alone will help you have more clarity in negotiations. And of course, order my book, Be Who You Are to Get What You Want, because there are a lot of tips and techniques in the book. And at the end of each chapter, there is a negotiation in real life toolkit. So you can have these quick references to help you real time.
I love it. All right, let's go to the next slide here. So I'm gonna thank the two of you for joining us for Winning Negotiations, Tactics and Techniques for Optimal Outcomes. Although it seems like I kind of interrupted you and pushed you off, I really set everybody else up. Let's go to the next slide. If you want to stay connected to Monique Good, please hit her up on LinkedIn. She can finish that statement there for you. And also, you can email Monique. She's been gracious enough to provide her email address. So that's direct LinkedIn, but I do think that you should also use LinkedIn to stay in touch with her. Damali, if you're looking to stay connected with Damali and the work that she's doing, she spoke about her book, Be Who You Are to Get What You Want. I know it's one of many books, I believe. You can go to her website to learn a little more information. Of course, she's on LinkedIn. Breakthrough Barriers with Damali, doing her thing. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, pretty branded through. Please connect with her. As you can see, she has a ton of information to share. All right, let's do it. This is the time that I've been waiting for, right? There's a QR code here that will allow you to lock in and grab Damali's book, but we are going to raffle a few off. So Damali has agreed to raffle off 5 copies of her new book. All you need to do is write NUL into the chat to enter the raffle now. We're dealing with some new technology here on the Urban League Jobs Network platform, so bear with us. NUL in the chat, please. And we are going to raffle off 5 copies of Damali's book. Let's do it. Hey, Damali, while we're waiting to get that system up, there was someone that asked, what was your aha moment to build a career around this topic? I don't know if you can share that in 15 seconds or so, but I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, sure. As an attorney, I realized that there were so many opportunities for people to have had better outcomes or reduce conflict or to just be themselves in negotiation before they had to get someone like me involved, right? Before you needed a lawyer to come in and do it for you. And I negotiate with people all the time, but I just think it's really awesome to give people another way or method of negotiating where they can be themselves. And we're ready.
All right, let's do it. All right, so the raffle, I believe, is taking place backstage. This is new to us, as I had mentioned. This technology is new, the process is new, but the team is not new, and they are amazing. So let's go. See the names going through. People are interested in receiving Damali's book. I love it. The winner is Denise Joseph. Denise, congratulations. You will hear from a member of the National Urban League team regarding how you will receive your book. We doing it again? Let's go. I actually enjoy this. It's amazing. Felicia McDowell, you will receive Damali's book. You are the winner. Let's go. Let's keep it going. Vernice Haynes, you will receive Damali's book. I should have put my name in the chat.
I should put my name in there too.
Let's go to the next one. That's 3. We got 2 more to go. Michael Howard, you will receive a copy of Damali's book. Thank you so very much for joining the Digital Career Success Series, sir. Let's go to the final contestant. This is kind of fun, actually.
Yeah, it is.
You gotta do this more often.
Clinton Arthur, you are the winner of Damali Peterman's book. Thank you all so very much for just participating and doing what we do. Hey, listen, if you want to stay connected with me and the work that I do out here, please tap in with me. You can find out all about me at eastcoastexecutives.com, or you can go to LinkedIn. I live on LinkedIn. I love that platform. So every show I ask y'all, connect with me. Let's talk. Let's share some information. And also on Instagram at KL Johnson Info. This is the work I do. This is the work I love. Speaking of love, let's go to the next slide here. Because we love you, we will continue to do this work. So stay with us. We'll be on again. Next slide, please. Yes, we will be on again in 2 weeks, October 15th, Empowering Connections, the art of networking in a virtual age. This is brought to you by our friends at American Water. So I'm really excited, setting on the run through, excited about the guest for the 15th. So with that being said, hopefully you'll join us for that event as well. We'll be promoting it. I don't know if we're going to have books to give away, but we did today. So with that being said, I'd like to thank you on behalf of the National Urban League, the Urban League Jobs Network team, Wanda Jackson, Julius Jones, everybody else behind the scenes doing great work and helping us make this show great. My name's Kenneth L. Johnson. Thank you so very much for joining us today, and have a great week.